Hello and welcome back. We are now on to chapter 7, The Beast in the Forest. After the light surrounded her, Bree felt like she was slipping on ice. She stumbled forward a bit and then began to fall. The tunnel shifted to a hole leading downward, and the walls seemed to flash as if they were being controlled by a light switch, turning off and on. Eventually, Bree could see trees, and she stumbled again as she hit the ground and fell forward. She stood up in a dark forest, feeling dizzy. It was suddenly cold and the ground was wet. She looked around her hands to see a small layer of snow on the ground. She stood up and looked back to where the tunnel should have been. There was nothing there but endless dark forest. Was she in goal? Wasn't she just in a cave? Why did she appear in a forest? She looked around and noticed she couldn't see very well in the dark. It was then her head started to ache and her eyes got blurry. She rubbed her eyes and leaned against the nearest tree. There was also a slight ringing in her ears. As she shifted her position to rest her back against the tree, she noticed that she didn't have her backpack on anymore, and her flashlight was missing. It was very dark, and Blaze and all her supplies were gone, as was the scroll. She quickly reached into her shirt and felt relieved to feel the pendant still there. She turned around a few times and then began searching the area. She had a backpack on in the tunnel, and it must have come off her when she exited and appeared here. It was still very dark, and there didn't seem to be a moon in the sky to help light the area. She didn't know how long she was searching for, but she stopped when she heard a noise in the distance. It was a rustling noise, as if something was moving in the forest a fair distance away from her. She looked in the direction of the noise and saw something in the shadows. It wasn't human, because it was down on all fours and crawling slowly to the side. At first she thought it was the bear from the abandoned cave in Miner's Point, but then she realized that bears usually approach in a straight line when hunting. This creature was circling her like a panther. She suddenly felt very scared and stood up. Without thinking, she took off running away from the creature as fast as she could. After a few moments, she could hear it give chase. She knew she could never outrun the animal. She considered fighting it with her slingshot, but that had been in her backpack too. Bree didn't know where she was running to, but she ran in a straight line in a direction away from the beast behind her. She could hear it panting and growling. It sounded big and unlike anything she'd ever encountered before. She didn't bother to turn and look. Knowing it was there was bad enough. She didn't need to see it. After a few minutes, she realized she was running faster than usual. She always knew she was a fast runner, the fastest in Passerelle. But this was different. She was outrunning an animal that should easily catch her. Not only that, she was moving in between the trees and over logs with ease, as if she could see they were there before she actually got there. She had been running a while and made her way to a clearing when the ground suddenly fell into a slope, leading to a deeper part of the forest. Bree tumbled forward. She was not prepared and rolled a fair distance, smacking her head on a few tree stumps before stopping in a small dip in the land. She could hear the beast approaching in the distance, but she felt herself slipping away. Before she passed out, she could see 2 large, dark moons in the sky above her, one slightly bigger than the other. They weren't white like the moon in the night sky above Passerelle, but a dark brown. Her mind faded, but before she was completely knocked out, she heard someone shouting from the other direction from the beast, and she could see the flicker from a torch. Who could that be? Stay tuned.